Everyone in the small town knew Linda as the dinner lady, the cheerful waitress who'd been serving the same customers for 12 years. But when 67-year-old Frank Peterson collapsed during breakfast, Linda's response revealed a past that nobody had ever suspected. Welcome back to Hidden Valor. If you believe every person deserves recognition for who they truly are, hit that subscribe button. Murphy's Dinner sat on Main Street in Millfield, Ohio. Population 8,400. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where coffee was always fresh, and where the same faces appeared at the same tables every morning like clockwork. Linda Rodriguez had been part of that clockwork for 12 years. At 43, she was as reliable as sunrise, working 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., 5 days a week. Customers could set their watches by her routine. "Morning, Linda," they'd call out as the bell above the door chimed their arrival. "Morning, hun," she'd reply, already reaching for the coffee pot. "The usual?" Linda had a gift for remembering orders. Frank Peterson got 2 eggs over easy, wheat toast, crispy bacon. Margaret Chen ordered oatmeal with fresh berries and honey. Tom Bradley liked his coffee black, with exactly 1 sugar packet. After 12 years, Linda knew not just what people ate, but how they liked their coffee, whether they preferred the booth by the window or the counter seat near the kitchen. To the people of Millfield, Linda was simply part of their daily routine. Pleasant, dependable, unremarkable. She had a warm smile, patient demeanor, and the kind of steady presence that made customers feel comfortable. She never seemed stressed during the breakfast rush, never appeared rattled by difficult orders or demanding customers. "Linda's good people," Margaret Chen would tell newcomers to town. "Been here longer than some of the buildings, always has a kind word." What Margaret and the rest of Millfield didn't know was why Linda never seemed rattled. They didn't know that those steady hands had worked under pressure that would break most people. They didn't know that the calm demeanor came from years of training in situations where staying calm meant the difference between life and death. Linda had learned long ago to keep her past to herself. When she'd moved to Millfield 12 years earlier, she'd simply told people she was looking for a quiet place to start over. Nobody asked about her background, and Linda preferred it that way. After years of chaos, routine was a blessing. But some training never leaves you. Some instincts run too deep to disappear. Friday morning, October 12th, started like any other day at Murphy's Diner. The breakfast rush was in full swing by 7:30 a.m. Linda moved between tables with practiced efficiency, coffee pot in one hand, order pad in the other. Frank Peterson was at his usual table by the window, reading the local newspaper while waiting for his breakfast. Frank was 67, a retired insurance agent who'd been coming to Murphy's every Friday for the past 5 years since his wife passed away. "How's that breakfast coming along, Frank?" Linda asked as she refilled his coffee cup. "Perfect timing as always," Frank smiled. "You know, Linda, you've been taking care of us so long, I don't know what this place would do without you." It was 7:47 a.m. when it happened. Linda was at the coffee station when she heard the sound every medical professional recognizes, the gasp of someone in distress. She turned to see Frank gripping his table, face pale and contorted with pain. "Frank," Linda called out, already moving toward him. Frank couldn't speak. His left hand pressed against his chest, breathing shallow and labored. The newspaper scattered across the floor. Other customers began to notice, the normal morning chatter fading as people realized something was wrong. But Linda was already in motion. She reached Frank's table in 3 quick strides and immediately knelt beside his chair. Everything about her demeanor had changed. The pleasant waitress was gone, replaced by someone else entirely. "Frank, can you hear me?" Linda's voice was calm but authoritative. "You're having a heart attack, but I'm going to help you." Frank's eyes widened with fear, but he nodded slightly. Linda turned to the other customers with unmistakable command. "I need someone to call 911 right now. Tell them we have a 67-year-old male experiencing cardiac arrest at Murphy's Dinner on Main Street. Tom, get me a clean towel and water." The dinner, which had been buzzing with confused murmurs, suddenly snapped into organized action. Margaret Chen was already dialing 911. Tom Bradley hurried toward the kitchen. Linda helped Frank slide from his chair to the floor, supporting his weight with surprising strength. She positioned him on his back, tilted his head slightly to keep his airway open, and began checking his vital signs with systematic efficiency that seemed to come from deep muscle memory. "Margaret, if you have aspirin in your purse, I need 1 tablet, Linda said while monitoring Frank's pulse. "How did you know?" Margaret started. "I'll explain later," Linda said, giving Frank the aspirin to chew. Frank, focus on breathing slowly. Your color is improving. When paramedics arrived at 7:55 a.m., Linda's response shocked everyone in the diner. What do we have? The female paramedic asked, kneeling beside Linda. Linda's response was crisp, professional, delivered in medical shorthand that made both paramedics look at her with surprise. 67-year-old male, presented with classic MI symptoms at 7:47, administered 81 milligrams aspirin at 7:49. Patient conscious and responsive throughout. Initial presentation, severe chest pain, diaphoresis, pallor. Current status, pain reduced from 9 to 6, pulse weak but regular at 70 BPM, respiration shallow but adequate. The male paramedic paused in setting up his equipment. Are you medical personnel? Linda hesitated for just a moment. I have some experience. The paramedics took over Frank's care, but they continued to include Linda in their assessment. It was clear they recognized her competence and valued her observations. Ma'am, I don't know what your background is, but your intervention probably saved this man's life, the female paramedic said as they prepared Frank for transport. The aspirin, the positioning, the airway management, you did everything right. As the ambulance pulled away with Frank Peterson, the customers at Murphy's dinner were left with questions. They just watched their pleasant, unassuming waitress handle a medical emergency with the skill and confidence of a trained professional. Margaret Chen was the first to voice what everyone was thinking. Linda, where did you learn to do that? Linda looked around at the faces of people she'd served for 12 years. People who'd become part of her daily routine, who'd trusted her with their breakfast orders, but had never asked about her life before Murphy's dinner. I used to be a medic, Linda said simply. What kind of medic? Tom Bradley asked. Linda paused, weighing how much to reveal. Army combat medic. I served 3 tours in Afghanistan. The silence in the diner was complete. Afghanistan? You were in the war? Margaret Chen asked, her voice filled with disbelief. Linda nodded. 2008 to 2014. I was attached to a forward operating base outside Kandahar. Our job was to provide medical support for combat operations. All these years we never knew, Tom said, sitting down heavily in the nearest chair. I didn't want you to know, Linda said gently. I came here because I wanted a normal life. I wanted to serve people in a different way. Over the next hour, as word spread through Millfield about what had happened at Murphy's Diner, more people arrived to hear Linda's story. She found herself explaining, for the first time in 12 years, what her life had been like before she became their waitress. Combat medics have to be like doctors sometimes, Linda explained to the gathered crowd. When you're in a forward position and the nearest hospital is hours away, you learn to handle everything. Heart attacks, gunshot wounds, traumatic injuries, shock, blood loss. We had to be ready for anything. What was it like over there? Asked Janet Morrison, who'd arrived after hearing about Frank's heart attack. Linda considered the question carefully. It was the hardest thing I've ever done and the most meaningful. Every day, we saved lives. Soldiers, civilians, sometimes even enemy fighters who'd been wounded. When someone is hurt, politics don't matter. You just do whatever it takes to keep them alive. Why didn't you become a doctor when you came back? Or work in a hospital? Someone asked. Linda's expression grew thoughtful. I tried that, at first. When I got out in 2014, I worked in a VA hospital for a while, but I was burned out. 6 years of constant crisis, constant life and death decisions, constantly being responsible for keeping people alive. I needed a break from all that intensity. She gestured around the diner. This place gave me what I needed. Routine, calm, the chance to take care of people in a simple, peaceful way. Instead of treating gunshot wounds, I could serve coffee. Instead of emergency surgery, I could make sure people had a good breakfast. Margaret Chen reached across and touched Linda's hand. But you never stopped being a medic, did you? It's still who you are, Linda smiled. You can take the medic out of the army, but you can't take the army out of the medic. The training never leaves you. When I saw Frank in distress, I didn't think about it. I just responded. Later that afternoon, Dr. Sarah Kim called from the hospital. Your initial treatment was textbook perfect. Mr. Peterson's recovery will be much easier because of your quick thinking. You saved his life. Word spread throughout Millfield. The local newspaper wanted to do a story, calling Linda a war hero. I'm not a war hero, Linda said. I was just someone who did her job. And today, I helped a friend. Don't you think people should know what you've sacrificed? The editor asked. Linda looked around the diner. I think people should know that service comes in many forms. I served my country in Afghanistan, and now I serve my community here. Both matter. She paused, refilling coffee cups. The most important thing we do is what we choose to do with the rest of our lives. How we use the skills we learned, the strength we gained. A month later, Frank returned to Murphy's diner for the first time since his emergency. Linda, I owe you my life, Frank said. Linda smiled. Frank, you look great. How are you feeling? Like a new man. The doctor said if you hadn't acted so quickly. Frank's voice caught. Frank, you would have been fine. The paramedics would have taken good care of you. Maybe, but they said those first few minutes were crucial. Frank sat at his usual table. I thought I knew you, but I never really did I? Linda poured his coffee. Black, 1 sugar, exactly how he liked it. Frank, you knew exactly who I am. I'm someone who takes care of people. That's who I was in Afghanistan, and that's who I am here. The setting changed, but the mission didn't. As Linda resumed her morning routine, the people of Millfield saw her a little differently. But Linda was exactly the same person she'd always been. Someone dedicated to taking care of others, whether on a battlefield or in a small-town diner. The only difference was that now they knew the whole story. Stories like Linda's remind us that heroism doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it serves coffee for 12 years, quietly waiting for the moment when training and compassion converge to save a life. The veteran behind the counter might have saved lives in combat. The waitress bringing your breakfast might have performed surgery under fire. We are surrounded by hidden heroes whose greatest victories happen in everyday moments when they choose to serve others. Have you ever met someone like Linda? Share their story in the comments. Because here at Hidden Valor, we believe every act of service deserves recognition, and every hero deserves to have their story told. If this story moved you, subscribe and share it. Help us honor those who serve in all the ways that matter.